Welcome to Idle Prattle, the unofficial Disney podcast where we will blabber about every Disney movie in order.
Do these films hold up? We'll share our thoughts on animation, music, cultural relevance, and more.
So take a gulp and take a breath as we dive deep into the world of Disney.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Idle Prattle.
Woo!
Abigail's starting it off.
I love it.
That's weird. That's backwards.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Me too.
I'm especially good because I watched Anastasia today, and I freaking love
That's
Anastasia.
so wild. I also watched Anastasia today. Well, Abigail, do you just want to talk about Anastasia?
I really, really would, but something weird's going on because we're a Disney podcast.
Something feels foolish.
April Fools.
Yeah.
We gotcha.
Gotcha.
Because we're not talking about Robin Hood.
We are not talking about Robin Hood today. We're talking about...
The Princess Anastasia, alive or dead.
Dum, bum.
We found out in 2007 that she was dead.
Oh,
Okay, yeah.
Oh no.
I mean, yeah.
But more so, we're talking about the 1997
Anastasia.
Anastasia.
This episode is special.
Yes, it is. Happy April 1st, everyone, if you're listening to it when it comes out.
Right. Hopefully, or otherwise the whole joke is lost on you.
I don't know how many of our listeners have seen Anastasia and thought for some portion of their lives that this is a Disney movie. I know I did.
I certainly did.
I always thought that it belonged there.
I think when I was watching it this time, I turned to Jordan and I said, I think I'm practically near tears because I'm thinking about how this is not a Disney movie.
I know,
and
it's
how
crazy.
It should be, and how she's not a Disney princess, and she should be.
She should be.
It just makes me so sad.
It's funny, though, because now this is a Disney... Oh, God, it's not a Disney... I mean,
It's Disney owned.
It's Disney owned now. Anastasia is now under the Disney umbrella because 20th Century Fox is now under there. So technically, she is Disney. You can watch her on Disney Plus.
You're right.
It's so close to being Disney. I just wish they would just kind of retcon her in.
Me too.
Know?
Right.
I would be fine with it.
Well, would you rather her be lumped into the Princess brand, or do you want her to stay in her own brand?
Lumped into the
Lumped
princess.
in the Princess
Oh,
brand.
okay.
On board. Yeah,
Oh,
totally.
yeah.
In fact, that would probably give her like a resurgence in popularity if they welcomed her in. So, because they have Disney princess coronations, which sounds crazy, but it is. But it's true. I mean, Disney has like official coronations for these fictional characters.
Yes, it is.
When does it happen? Like, has Raya gotten a coronation?
No.
Even Elsa and Anna
Moana,
don't have.
Elsa, none of them are Disney princesses.
It's because their brands are so lucrative as their own brands.
Right.
Like people want Frozen stuff.
Frozen will probably never be officially Disney princesses because that brand is just like...
I think in like 10
Eventually it
years,
will.
yeah.
Maybe.
I don't think this brand
We'll
can
see.
Not for a
last.
while, though.
Agreed, yeah.
I think Raya is a good contender to become one.
As is Anastasia. As is Meg, but we'll get there.
Oh, yeah. We could have an entire episode of the princess brand and what it means and how you get into it and who's gotten kicked out of it.
We really could. But for right now, Anastasia. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about when this movie came out. It was definitely not in the Disney brand. And there was a heavy competition. Some might say even fierce competition.
Oh, yeah. So, real quick, what was everybody's gut reactions? And have we all seen this movie before? What's your relationship with this film?
I definitely watched it as a kid. I thought I watched it a lot, but I think what I really had were like toys of it and stuff. But I really liked it as a kid, and I really like it every time I watch it more as an adult. I appreciate it a lot more. I probably enjoyed it this time the most.
I definitely loved this movie as a kid. It was just as ingrained in my repertoire, my animated movie repertoire as Disney movies. And I didn't realize how much affection I had to this movie until today when I was like watching it with Jordan. I was singing along with it and he was like, you know a lot of those lyrics. And I just know a lot about this movie. And apparently it was a huge part of my childhood. And I just love it. There was not a part of me watching it today that was like, oh, it's lost its luster. No, it shines even more brightly. It's like that big crown that she has on her head. It has the biggest little tiara.
It really is. I'm on the same page as Abigail. I have so many fond memories of watching this on VHS when I was living in New Jersey as a child, and it has just held its sparkle for years, and I absolutely love it.
It is one of those, like, I can see it in my head in my, like, cabinet of VHSs, and this one definitely just sat there with the Disney ones as if it belonged there, because it definitely, I mean, it does.
Yeah. Totally.
This is the most Disney, like,
Worthy.
non-Disney movie.
So let's kick it off with a summary.
The evil wizard Rasputin puts a hex on the royal Romanovs, and young Anastasia disappears when their palace is overrun. Years later, the Grand Duchess offers a reward for Anastasia's return. Two scheming Russians, planning to pawn off a phony, hold auditions and choose an orphan girl with a remarkable resemblance to the missing princess. They bring her to Paris for the reward, not knowing that she's the real Anastasia.
Okay.
All right.
You guys, you want to rate that?
3
plot
stars.
summary?
Yeah.
What's wrong with it?
It was
I don't know. I feel like...
calling Rasputin a wizard.
Yeah.
When he never calls himself a wizard. And also, like, mystic might work better, or devil child. I don't know.
Holy man.
Also,
Two scheming Russians. I don't love, I don't love
like,
that.
two scheming Russians. I was
They're
like,
all
who
Russians.
are you talking about? Except for the Parisians.
I think it should have just been 2 con men.
yeah. We understand once we get into Rasputin and Anastasia, we're in Russia.
Yeah.
Okay, so coming off of that plot summary, getting a little bit more into the origin story, this is definitely a difference from the origin material. And it's not really a story. It's
This is real life.
real account of what happened, but a very romanticized, very inaccurate.
Very similar, I think, to how Pocahontas is. Like,
Yeah, you're right.
I feel like
agree.
I see a lot of comparisons between these 2 films,
Yeah.
in they are based on historical events, but
Completely
really romanticized.
made into a fairy tale version of them.
Yep.
Which it's fun. Like, I enjoy this fairy tale that they've created. It's just really weird, because especially when you think of, like, the events took place in 1910s to the 1920s, which is, like, not that long ago
Yeah.
in the scheme of things. Like, it's not like, it
Hundreds.
just...
It kind of creeped me out to hear like the origin story.
Yeah.
And then see actual photographs of Anastasia, and it just feels less. It happened. Like, it happened in this world not too long ago.
Yeah, this didn't happen. The movie the movie did not happen, unfortunately, because that would have been much nicer. But it was more horrific events.
So let's get into the actual events, and we'll kind of be brief about it and not be too graphic when telling you all. Anastasia was born in 1901, and in 1918, her family, she had 4 brothers and sisters, her mother and her father, and several other people that were related to her and part of the Romanov dynasty were assassinated by Bolsheviks. And they were taken away from the palace. Basically, their remains were...
Scattered.
yeah, essentially. So that's why it was really hard to figure out where Anastasia, like, what happened to her.
Like, over the decades, bodies of the Romanovs were found, but they were all separated. And so it took a long time for them to, like, be like, this is definitely one sister, this is the youngest brother, this is who this is. And so one of the bodies that had not been recovered was either Anastasia or her sister Marie. And so it's interesting because Marie is sort of like,
Yeah, like,
it
why
could
did-
have been her. I don't know why Anastasia
Yeah, but
specifically.
Anastasia-
Marie doesn't sound like
Right.
of a film
Anastasia
title.
was the youngest. So I
Yes.
think it's even more, it becomes more and more tragic the younger these children are.
And her name means resurrection. So I think that's another reason why she was specifically used. Because like you said, Marie doesn't just sound as like, catchy.
So it actually very recently in 2007, it was finally disproved that something interesting happened with her as far as like the events of this story. And that's interesting to state because, as we said, this movie came out in 1997 when there was still this air of who knows what happened
Mystery.
there was mystery and romance surrounding it. But in 2007, we had enough DNA testing technology
Forensics.
so that the DNA could be studied. It was proven that she was killed in 1918.
But where we come from in this movie, like what happens in this is because after this, and because all of the bodies hadn't been found like in the 20s and moving on, there were Anastasia imposters.
Yeah.
And that they would claim to be, quote, the lost princess, Anastasia.
It was really interesting to read about those imposters. And one of the most famous was a woman named Anna Anderson. Kind of like Anya.
Oh, okay.
And she actually convinced a lot of people in Russian government or part of the Romanov family that she was, in fact, Anastasia. And it turned out that she had such severe mental illness that she was committed to an asylum.
It's sort of sad looking into it. Quite a few of the imposters have had some sort of mental illness. So it was kind of like a weird reason why they were saying that they were Anastasia.
Well, they even play into that in this movie because the whole thing was that in this movie, if Anya wasn't actually Anastasia, then she was being kind of delusional.
Right.
And everybody didn't really believe her. And they, especially like the orphanage mistress or whatever, was very much like, yeah, sure, be grateful for what you have, stop kind of acting like you're a princess. Also, as far as like origin story, Rasputin has an interesting difference between what happened in real life and what happened in the movie. So, and he's fascinating to me, kind of creepy.
Yeah,
Rasputin, as a figure in history, you can find him in all kinds of stuff. Like, he's the villain not only in Anastasia, but he's the villain in the original Hellboy movie. He's a villain in other works of fantasy because Rasputin was a, quote, holy man that knew the Romanov family and did associate with them. There was even so far as rumors of him and Nicholas's wife, Alexandra, is that her name? Being like a little too close. And so he never actually was antagonistic with them, as this movie suggests. Like, and he actually died before they were killed as well. There's also a lot of legend behind him specifically because when he was killed, he was poisoned with cyanide and he showed no symptoms. That just didn't kill him. And so then...
It's magic, people.
Right. And then, so he then was shot with a shotgun and he got up and like attacked the person who shot him. And so finally, like the third time after shooting him more times and in the head, he finally perished.
Oh my gosh.
And his body was dumped over a bridge and his body was found frozen.
What did he do next?
Right, exactly. And so that's where like this, like him being a corpse and him like defying death comes from in this movie, and in other iterations of Rasputin being a villain. Like I said, in Hellboy specifically, like he's immortal, like he can't die.
Obviously, all of this stuff is extremely dark.
Right. Yes.
And so, in fact, so dark that when they were pitching this movie to actors like Meg Ryan, she said, well, this is really dark. I'm very unsure about signing on for this animated, like, family feature. And they really had to convince people that this story was actually going to involve comedy and take it into a more friendly tone.
Well, the original drafts were a lot darker, and I think that's probably part. I know the very first draft had no music, and Rasputin had no magic. It was a lot truer to the history of Anastasia, and then slowly over time, 20th Century Fox was like, let's chip away at the darkness. We can keep a little, which they do keep a lot of it, I think. But let's add in some family-friendly things, which I think was pretty good.
Well, what do you all think about the elements that were true that they kept in? Do you feel like it was rushed, especially like Angela Lansbury's synopsis at the beginning?
It doesn't bother me. To me, they are just telling the story of Anya becoming an adult and discovering who she really is, and that's the point of the story. I don't think it's a story of the fall of the empire, and I don't need any of that. I mean, we need it as backstory, but I mean, I didn't feel it was any more rushed than some Disney movies, like Frozen. Like their parents are just kind of like killed. And then,
Yeah.
spoiler alert, and like Raya had to introduce an entire world to us in the first 5 minutes. Like, I think it was just setting the scene, so it didn't bother me.
I think that it was enough to give us a really good context of setting and historical context without getting it too muddled up.
I agree.
Yeah, because if you give us too much, it's just like a history lesson about something that they're going to change.
This begs the question of, when everybody was so hopeful for this storyline to be this way, everybody wanted this to actually happen, the story of Anya to be real. And so much so that they believed all of these imposters actually in real life.
Right.
And so I think that the reason why I have more sympathy for this story being historically inaccurate is because I think it is a story that's very like hopeful and is playing on a very interesting part of this narrative.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, and we have science and facts that tell us that it wasn't actually this way. But I think that the beginning song, you know, alive or dead, who knows, you know, kind of brings this whole what if situation into the story.
Right.
And I also think a huge part of this story is a romantic plot line.
Yes.
It is, for the majority of the film, we are believing that the theme might be finding your home, finding your family, and ultimately it becomes finding yourself and finding what really matters to you. And I think that that's through this romance between Dimitri and Anya. Did you guys feel the chemistry? Do you think that it was a well-written romance?
Oh, completely.
Yeah, I totally enjoyed
Like
them as romance.
100%. I made multiple comments about it. So
I think that this has some better romances than some Disney romances.
completely.
I agree. I think it's better than any that we've seen so far. Now, granted, we're in like the early 70s of our podcast, and we're jumping 20 years
Yeah, that's
to now time,
something
so
to
that's like
remember.
trying to navigate.
So why do it now then?
Well,
First of all, it's April Fool's.
It's April
Yeah,
Fools.
April Fools.
so we planned this for a while.
Around April Fools.
Right.
And that was the only reason.
That we're
But-
going to do this podcast.
Exactly.
Yes. And so, with a twist of fate and some Disney magic, it turns out that Don Bluth and Gary Goldman, who directed...
Not Gary Oldman.
No,
Gary Goldman.
who directed this movie together, both worked for Disney before. Don Bluth worked for a couple of years in the 50s, and then he left, but he came back in 1971 and started work on Robin Hood, which will be our next episode and our next Disney movie, so it's a little serendipitous here that we get him. Gary Goldman, the other director, also worked in the Bronze Age. Mm-hmm. So this is like a double whammy for us.
Yeah, you know, we picked this because it is so close to being a Disney film, and it ended up being a really good bridge into our next film. So it was just kind of, it couldn't have come at a
Serendipitous.
better time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sign that it was meant to be. So let's talk about Don Bluth for a little bit. Because like we said, he worked for Disney, and I'm just going to start like in the 70s when he came back and started working for Robin Hood. He worked on Robin Hood up to The Rescuers, which is the Bronze Age, which is what we're into right now. But eventually Don Bluth left Disney because he did not enjoy the way it was being run at the time. And he really wanted to get into his own like independent thing and animate movies the way that he thinks that classic Disney films were made, more like Snow White.
You know, speaking of his discontent, we were talking about that in Aristocats, that the Sherman brothers left, and wasn't there an animator that left? I mean, like, there was discontent in the studio because people didn't like how it was being run post Disney's
Right.
death. Yeah.
Death.
Right.
So it sounds like he was part of that party.
Right. There's like an exodus of people that are trying to do their own thing. I have the biggest respect for Don Bluth. Some of his animated movies, you may have never heard of him, but you've definitely heard of his films. Like, he's responsible for Land Before Time, An American Tale, All Dogs Go to Heaven, Thumbelina. These are movies that I watched just as much as Disney movies as a kid. And so he has his own legacy that it may not rival the Walt Disney Company today, but it definitely gave it a run for its money.
I certainly think it rivals it.
Yeah.
I think that for somebody to challenge this company that has been in the works for like decades,
Right.
for him to come in and make movies that were huge, they were blockbuster hits, and they were high quality too, I think.
Yes.
So I think that, yeah, he's definitely like dynamite.
But I think that you can tell in this movie specifically of Anastasia, he had made some of those movies I mentioned previously, but he was working with 20th Century Fox. This is not his first movie, but this is 20th Century Fox's first feature animated film of their like studios that they made. It only lasted 2 movies for that specifically, but this is the first and the best. But this was a hit, like, for Don Bluth. Like, this was great. It has all the classic Disney essentials, I would say. And then when they made this movie, they did, like, the whole live-action reference thing that we've seen throughout all of these early Disney movies. And I think you can totally tell when you watch the movie, like, the way that people are animated and their facial expressions and the way they move.
So it was a success in terms of Don Bluth's career, but was it a success in the box office?
Yeah, so in general, it got really good reviews. It currently holds an 86 on Rotten Tomatoes. However, there were some that didn't love the liberties that they took with the history of the story. I think that's more about personal opinion, because there were a lot of reviewers that didn't have a problem with it, including Russian reviewers. I was reading about that. There were some, like, it made a lot of money in Russia. So I know, I was kind of surprised by that. So overall, it made $139 and change $1 million worldwide in its release.
And that's double the production.
Cost. Way more. It had about $50 million. Right. So almost shy of triple the production cost, which is pretty crazy. And then it was nominated for 2 Academy Awards and 2 Golden Globes, all for the music, which we'll get into.
Which is
but
duly deserved.
I know, duly deserved. I have a question. It was nominated for 2 Academy Awards for Best Song and Best Score. Do you think this movie would have been nominated / would it have won Best Animated Feature if that category had existed at this time?
Oh, what other movies were out?
Hercules and Princess Mononoke are the 2 other highest grossing animated films along with this of that year.
Well, Chris, you're asking us, is this a better movie than Hercules?
I didn't say that. I asked if it would win an Academy Award over Hercules.
I honestly think it would have. I prefer Hercules, but I have a feeling this probably would have won.
I think it would have won.
I don't know. I think this would have won. Mm-hmm. I think so.
I think at this point in time, Disney had kind of had the monopoly on successful animated films. And Anastasia, I think, would have been kind of a Cinderella story of, like, coming in and beating Disney at their own game.
It's big, we can do this too.
As much as, if they can learn to do it, I can learn to do it. As much as I adore Hercules, and it is my all-time favorite Disney movie, I know that critically it was not as beloved as the movies that had just come out before it. Right. So I think...
I see what you're saying.
So I think voters would have been like, ooh, something new and fresh.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going with this.
The underdog?
Really think they would have.
Yes, exactly. For clarification, the Best Animated Feature category did not come out until the early 2000s. The first film to be nominated in that category was Shrek.
And won.
And it won, yes.
Yeah, so also, I just want to mention that Disney was being a little ruthless in their competitive nature against this film.
Yes.
And we all understand that Disney does some fantastic things, but they are like a monstro whale of a huge corporation.
They are a business
that looks out for their butt and nobody else's. Mm-hmm. Okay. And there was definitely accounts of the re-release of Little Mermaid was coming out between like 17 days of when this movie came out. And they also did not allow Anastasia to be advertised on any network that Disney owned.
Like ABC.
Yeah. Yeah. And it
That's
just
petty.
seems...
It's so
petty. It is petty.
That is petty.
And I think it might have been because the directors were previous Disney folk.
I think if it had been just another animated studio with no Disney connections, I think they would have let it slide, an advertisement here and there. Like, I feel like I've seen DreamWorks advertisements on, like, ABC or ABC Family, or also in 2021, Disney owns a lot more than they did in 1997. Yeah. So it's kind of hard to not allow advertisements and stuff. But all that to say, I wonder if they would have let it slide if there wasn't that Disney connection.
There was a lot of speculation of like, Disney said to the press, like, there's no hard feelings, we're not being competitive. But it was very clear that there was some strategic moves happening to not have Anastasia succeed over Disney. So, gotta love them. I mean, they could have been nicer in this situation because objectively, Anastasia is amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
It's amazing because of this dank animation. Just in like the first 5 minutes, my jaw was dropped because of this intense detailing of Russian-inspired setting and lavish regalness. It was amazing.
Last week, during the Aristocats, we spoke about how nothing was Parisian-inspired.
Right.
This is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
With 2 locations.
Right.
With Russia and Paris.
Yes.
That's another interesting connection that we're going from one Parisian film right into Anastasia, which is very Paris-centric. But it's the exact opposite. The architecture, the colors, the costuming. I mean, all of it looks so intensely researched.
And they made it hard on themselves by having costumes change,
Yes.
having so many extras, if you will, like, extra people that they had to characterize. Everything was so inspired by it was the exact right time period of the early 20th century. The location had such character.
So great. I made a note while I was watching it. You said the extras. During the first opening song, A Rumor in St. Petersburg, I mean, there's like a full choreographed dance number with like hundreds of people, all with detail. And I was like, this is an insane amount of people to animate for this scene. Like, it could have been like 30 people and it would have been fine. But they were like, no, this is a city. This needs like 200 people at least in this square.
Yeah, you gotta, because we're jumping ahead in time. So like the animation is obviously much more advanced at this time. But in 1997, we were starting a new era of like using computers to animate. And so these animators not only did their research and like went to Russia and went to Paris and took photographs and like did all this stuff, but now they get to open a whole new world of them painting their cells on the computer and doing like 10 times the work in half the time. And I think that really shows too. And I think that this movie specifically does a really good job of mixing it. Like there's some times where you can tell that there's something 3D.
There is one moment specifically that just really ticks me off.
Well, and there's like, and like the music box, it's like it's so obviously like 3D. But like it's 1997, so I'm like, oh, it's totally forgiven for them because like the same year Hercules is out, you get the Hydra monster
and
itself
that ticks me off too.
Right. So, and that just comes with the territory of learning a new process. But I just think it's cool that that's like where we're going into. I don't want to talk about too much because I want to save that for like when we get to the actual Disney movies that use it. But that's what's happening here, and that's why you see some of that.
As far as animation goes, I think that is where it's not as solid as the Disney films of that time. And I will point out the one thing that was hardest for me to get around. I believe that especially animation of humans and their facial features seemed to have a wide range of morphing. If you understand what I mean, Dimitri's face wasn't always the same proportions throughout the movie. It would change a lot. The crease in between like a cheek and the mouth, you know what I'm talking about? Was like somebody really loved popping those in like on every character, and it always made these characters look really unappealing.
There's a few times that Anastasia's mouth, like I was like, what's happening?
So maybe even I'm not even saying their whole physicality. I'm saying like facial features. There were points where her her eyes were big on her face, and sometimes they were smaller. I just feel like somebody did not do measurements. They weren't like, her face is always like this long. Her eyes need to be like in proportion this big to the rest of her face. Right?
No, I know what you're saying.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because you're so right. And I feel like I didn't really...
Sometimes Dimitri's nose has like a a weird bump in it, and sometimes it doesn't. You know, sometimes Sophie is more voluptuous.
I did notice
she's
that.
more curvaceous.
I was like, is it her dress?
And sometimes she's less. But in the same dress. And that's so nitpicky because it's almost unperceivable.
Yes.
It doesn't get in the way of story to me. But I will say that's where the accuracy I feel was lacking.
To be fair, just devil's advocate, I do think some Disney movies of the late 90s into the early 2000s have that same issue, though.
And to the point of this computer generated stuff, they can type it into a computer like these are the proportions of the face, and they don't have to work on that. When somebody is hand drawing something, there is going to be variation from frame to frame just because it is like human error, and that's something that's really beautiful.
And that's what, I don't know if we've said in-betweeners a lot on the podcast, but that's like a job title of animators in like animated movies, but they are basically in charge of drawing the character, making the movement. Like the animators will draw the characters like not frame by frame, but like maybe every other frame. So like I saw something on like a documentary I was watching where Dimitri was one like standing straight, and then the next paper was him with his hand up and his head turned. And the in-betweeners have to go in between those and make the movement happen.
Interesting.
And so it's not even the same person doing all of those drawings, plus different humans making different errors.
Yeah.
I think maybe is where that's coming from. And
Totally.
Yeah.
I think that they had a lot of really dynamic scenes where the animation could flourish. For instance, like the train scene was amazing with the explosion, the snowfall. They left no footprint in the snow uncrunched.
Y'all, that scene terrified me as a kid. The animation is so good. I was certain that at some point in my life, I was going to have to jump off of a fiery train. This movie was like, I was like, oh no, I can't ride trains. This is what's going to happen.
The boat scene and the back and forth between the dream and what was happening in reality was seamless. I mean, it was so terrifying.
Yes.
Because I could be at ease with her in the dream and then so scared for her when it went back to in person. And then Rasputin's body falling apart was so cleverly done. And it was, I'm not somebody who's really attracted to gore and gruesomeness, but it was done in such a way that it was comedic and just really clever. Every time you were like, what's going to fall apart this time?
Every time his mouth would fall down his beard was so, I just laugh every time. It's great.
That's so funny because I do like gruesome stuff and I like horror and everything. And I loved it whenever like his eyeball would fall out or like something would like droop. But when his mouth would fall down his beard and he would still be talking, it drove me nuts.
What?
I'm like, that his mouth is, his lips are falling, not his entire throat. And like, how is he talking?
You don't know.
Well, okay. But like, it's just funny. But I completely, what I'm saying is, it was a good combination.
And when someone says just like, I just sold my soul, I was like, don't mess around with that. I saw Rasputin sell his soul to the devil, and it was terrifying.
Two things that I loved in the animation. There were two moments that I loved. Number one was the scene during Once Upon a December when all of the ghosts fly out of the windows and
Haunted
into
Mansion
It's just like Haunted Mansion.
Exactly. And they like turn from dust into humans, float down. Her dress transformation is beautiful. Of like, it's, I don't know, I just love it. All of the detail in how it like turns into a dress, but then when she's done, she like snaps out of it and the dress like instantly poofs into like sparkly dust.
My favorite moment of the film is when she kneels down and she's in her like ghost dress. Ghost is a real word. You guys need to watch this movie if you haven't seen it because you got to see what we're talking about.
It's so beautiful.
But when she finishes the song and then she's like kneeling down, and the minute Dimitri says "Hey," and that thing just explodes, and it's like oh,
the whole fantasy.
Oh my
explodes.
god, it's so good. That whole scene is it's animated so well, and I
chills.
Yeah, I get chill. I'm talking about it like it's so good, and I love watching it. I watched it twice because I wanted to when I was watching it the first time, I was trying to envision her doing what she was doing without the ghost because it still would make sense. Like when you watch her, she just looks like she's dancing around in the empty room, even though there's people all around her. But it's so like fun to watch her like know what she's doing in real life, but what she's imagining is so good that it's really good.
And we haven't even touched on Perry Holds the Key to Your Heart.
That was the next thing.
Animation-wise, it was
What?
bonkers.
Amazing.
I mean, it was
crazy.
And the most noticeable thing that they do is, and this is what we're talking about as far as using the setting to inspire the animation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So because it's based in Paris, they have this like impressionist painting or backdrops and stuff.
Yes.
Throughout that
Pointillism
scene.
almost.
It was so gorgeous.
Stunning.
But it's fused so well together with the action that's happening that you have to know the reference.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it still really looks great within the scene.
Yes. What I love about Paris Holds the Key to My Heart, animation-wise, is that it has this almost abstract, impressionist, weird animation in the background, but it also has some of the most cinematic moments, like the part where he holds up the champagne glass and looks through it and sees her dancing through the glass. Mm-hmm. That's straight out of Great Gatsby. It's so cinematic, and it's so gorgeous, and I'm just like, this film did it.
Well, we just talked about like these grandiose animation sequences, but my actual personal favorite is when Bartok realizes that Anastasia is alive and the vial of ghostly demons pulls him down to limbo.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so, I don't know, and it's so fast that I feel like people don't have time to appreciate that animation, but him being pulled down and it's like he's underwater but he's not, and then it zooms in on his face and then he goes through, it's, you know what it reminds me of is like the sequence in Doctor Strange where he goes through all the dimensions.
Yeah.
And it's like trippy. That's how I felt with Bartok, was like falling through these like weird unnatural versions of the earth until he gets down to limbo where Rasputin is. And it was just very Don Bluth like to me to see like that animation, and I think Bartok was animated best in that moment too, because they got close-ups of his face and everything. So that's just my personal favorite.
I know we talked about Rasputin's character design. There are some other characters that I just love the design of. First of all, Anastasia. Does anybody else think that Anastasia looks like Kate Walsh, the actress?
She does.
She looks like
does.
the entire movie. It's like, I don't think Kate Walsh was like a famous actress at the time, but I'm like, it looks like they just animated Kate Walsh, especially on the boat when she has her hair back. I'm going to post a side-by-side photo because it's crazy. But I love Vlad's character design, and I love Sophie's. I just love,
Sophie's great.
I love both of them. I think they're great characters.
Sophie's silhouette is probably the best visually, I think.
Yeah.
Like with her little hairdo.
Yes,
and,
I love her hair. And I love that they play with these character designs so much. Every single character has many outfits. They have many hairstyles, hairdos, especially Anastasia. I mean, it's ponytail, it's down, it's short, it's up, it's bunned, it's everything.
Her bows.
My only thing, you might know where I'm going with this. Just halfway through the movie, he was like, I got you this dress. Apparently, he also got her some, like, extensions. Because her hair goes from very short to very long.
Okay,
quickly.
I thought about that, but then I went back. I
Isn't
think
her hair
her
just,
hair
like,
is
up?
just up.
It's
I
up
think
in
it's
her hat.
I think it's up and then wrapped around itself.
When
I
she
think
takes her head off earlier in the movie, because I noticed this too, because her hair looks so short.
Yes.
But then there's one part where she's walking and singing, and she takes her hat off, and there's a ton of hair up here.
Yes.
And it's like
I
hidden
think-
inside of her hat.
because I thought the same thing. I said, "Dang, her hair grew." But
No, it's like weird. It's like she has it pulled in a ponytail, but then pulled up and then wrapped up, and then there's like a smaller ponytail. I don't know
We'll
why
have
I'm
to
like,
do some
visually showing
research.
you.
I'll just say that's not how hair works.
touche.
I agree though, because I was like, her hair got super long, but then I had the same thing where I was like, oh, her hair was up earlier. I'm a boy, and that's the explanation.
Yeah. It never really bothered me growing up. I noticed it on this rewatch, but, you know, do whatever you want with your hair. You're beautiful, girl.
One last character design I want to mention is Dimitri, just not the most handsome man.
Oh,
I mean,
they still my heart.
I mean, they like took all these pieces of other famous animated princes and just were like, let's make this gorgeous man.
They took some 90s hot boy, too.
They did, too.
With
Yeah.
that little,
Yeah.
like,
That
the
hair.
hair. Oh, my.
Totally 90s, like, boy bandish.
Yeah.
In the best way.
It was like Nick from
yes.
Backstreet Boys. Yeah. And I was telling Jordan earlier, I was so convinced that the person who voiced Dimitri was going to be as equally good looking.
Right,
And I looked up John Cusack and I was like, oh.
Nope.
It blows my mind.
He got a good voice.
Cusack, yeah, he does.
Oh, man, does he.
Now that I've heard him, I'm like, that just fits Dimitri so well. The only person that I would, like, recast as Dimitri, like, if they made it in, like, 2011, is Chris Pine. I think Chris Pine would be a really good Dimitri.
Chris Pine would be so good.
Yeah,
I agree. They do have a very similar voice, yeah.
But it was 1997, and John Cusack sounds amazing. Why doesn't you do more voice work? You
I
sound
looked him
so
up. That's
good.
the only voice work he's done. It's
It's
like,
weird.
what is this?
I'm like, you should... He sounds...
You got a good looking voice, John.
Exactly.
All right, since we're talking about voices, do you just want to go right into the voice acting? Because
Heck yes.
we are jumping so far in time with this film that this is the first time on the podcast we're going to be talking about like famous voices that we know. Well,
We don't have to like
time.
look them up to figure out who they are.
I mean, we knew Thurl, Raymond Croft, and there were a few people, but this is like an all-star cast of people that we know, at least our age group and older probably know.
Right.
So Dimitri was John Cusack, and then Anastasia is Meg Ryan.
And oh my gosh, I love her voice. I
sounds
love
so
it.
good too.
I
Why hasn't she done more voice work?
I don't know. It's a great question.
She sounds really good. She has such a distinct, like, Anastasia will always have, like, that distinct voice because Meg Ryan has that. Like,
yeah.
As far as Meg Ryan goes, Don Bluth was like, this is the person that I want. Nobody else. That's my first choice. And in order to convince her, because she was unsure, they took the voice work in Sleepless in Seattle and they put animation to it and sent it to her to convince her. And that's how she ended up signing on to do this role.
That is wild.
Yeah.
That is so wild.
Where is that? We need it released.
Yeah, I know. Release the...
Hashtag release the Ryan cut.
I want the 4-hour version of this
I really
movie.
do.
Before we get off of Anastasia, in the prologue, there was Anastasia as a child. And that also had a famous voice, though probably not at the time. The voice is, it's Kirsten Dunst, plays young Anastasia.
Yeah, I think she was only, like, known at that point for Interview with a Vampire. And even then, it was just, like, the little girl in the vampire movie. But
Wasn't she in Jumanji?
She was in Jumanji.
She wasn't Jumanji, so yeah, maybe that was...
And Little Women.
But she was not Kirsten Dunst yet. Like, she wasn't...
Yeah.
She hadn't played Mary Jane Watson.
That's what made her Kirsten Dunst. Although, really, I do think that was, like, her biggest...
I think Bring It On and Spider-Man,
yeah,
like,
Bring It
made
On.
her
Yeah,
a household name.
I agree. But yeah, seeing that name on the cast list at the end, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
It almost seems like a stunt casting, like, retroactively, even
Right.
though it's not at all.
Exactly. We also had Kelsey
Kelsey Glammer!
Glamour.
That's my new drag name.
I
Kelsey Glammer. Welcome to the stage, Kelsey Glammer.
Oh, man, it's so good.
Oh my god.
Kelsey Grammer is Vlad. Christopher Lloyd as Rasputin. Hank Azaria as Bartok.
Oh, I love Hank Azaria.
Bernadette Peters
Girl.
Yes.
as Sophie.
Yes.
And Angela Lansbury as the Empress.
Why is Angela Lansbury so freaking amazing?
She's so good.
How does she, like, use the same voice in every character, but not? You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, this
it's-
one, had variation.
Yeah,
Totally.
Like,
It's so distinctly her.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
And
She
it's-
does exactly what Phil Harris does not do.
Yes,
in his time with
exactly.
Disney.
Yeah.
exactly.
Did either of y'all have like a favorite voice acting moment?
Meg Ryan for me.
Right. And
Mine's Bernadette Peters in that French accent.
Yes.
I just, every time.
Bernadette Peters is one of my favorite humans in all of time. And so the fact that she's in this movie is amazing.
Yep.
But since you already said her, I will go with Hank Azaria. Although in this specific role, I'm not like overwhelmingly impressed. But he's definitely doing a voice, and he has like this very distinct voice that he does with Bartok, and he makes it funny. He's the comedic relief for this movie, and he's like there for the kids. And
6-year-old Abigail was so into Bartok.
I loved Bartok. I had like a stuffed animal of him, and I love Hank Azaria. And if you guys don't know who Hank Azaria is, you'd probably recognize him if you saw him. But he's in so many things.
Smurfs.
Yes,
Smurfs 2.
Well, yeah.
He
that's
plays
later.
David the scientist in Friends.
He does.
Phoebe's first love,
Exactly.
who was the first time I ever saw him.
Mystery Men, which was like a cult favorite of mine when I was younger. He's in a lot of things that not everyone has seen, but if you've seen the right things, you know who he is. You know what I mean?
I think that could be said about every actor.
Well, they cannot. It's
if
only
you've
Hank
seen the
Azaria.
right things, you know them.
He's not in 15 critically acclaimed amazing things and everyone knows his name.
Right.
But he's like, you've heard him.
He's a great
like
actor.
you know who he is because you've heard him because he's in everything.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of people that are in critically acclaimed movies who are not very critically acclaimed in this movie, we were surprised to see that J.K. Simmons and Billy Porter
That is crazy.
were
Ensemble members.
Yes,
They
just-
sing on the soundtrack and they speak in the background.
I wish I knew when Billy Porter's voice came up. Like, I wish I knew about Billy Porter before we watched because I would love to, like, figure out if I could hear his voice.
In my dream world, he's the one that says, "And a rose is a rose." I don't think that was him, but I just feel like Billy Porter would, like, eat that line up.
I'm so curious to know.
So one thing that this film does, which I think was a big thing in the 90s
This
and
is like
early
almost
2000s.
Every movie, even Disney movies.
This
did
is like peak 90s situation, is that they cast these amazing professional actors that are absolutely incredible as the voice cast, but those actors aren't singers. And man, do I love Meg Ryan and John Cusack, but they are not the singers in this film, so they don't sing any of the songs. So they did have different voices for those two actors. A lot of the other actors sang, like Bernadette Peters, Angela Lansbury,
Kelsey Grammer was like, if I'm voicing this character, I'm going to sing as this character.
of course.
It's like, okay.
But the three main characters that did not sing their own were Anastasia. Liz Calloway was the singing voice who she does singing in some Disney films. She sang in the ensemble of Beauty and the Beast and Pocahontas. Mm. And then Dimitri, Jonathan Dokuchitz was the singing voice there. And then for Rasputin, Christopher Lloyd did not sing. The singing voice for Rasputin was Jim Cummings, who is for a lot, he's not the original, but for a lot of time, he plays Tigger throughout most Disney things. Right. So that's pretty interesting. And then my favorite one, young Anastasia. Kirsten Dunst did not sing that. Do y'all know who sang it?
Wow.
No.
Lacey Chabert.
No
Who
way.
is Gretchen Wieners from Mean Girls.
No way.
Yes.
I love it. I don't know why, but Lacey Chabert always pops up in like things that I don't realize she's in. And I'm always just like, what?
What are you doing here?
What are
She
you?
is on the soundtrack of
Oh
this
my
movie.
god, I love
What?
it so much.
I mean, and this is like 7 years before Mean Girls is a thing. So
yeah.
is this not crazy? I mean, that's crazy.
This is crazy.
Crazy.
Okay, so getting into these voices, this music is contestable to anything Renaissance.
Yes.
And I hold very true to that. I think that Once Upon a December, for me, I'm sorry, but Colors of the Wind is always going to be my favorite song. But I would be seriously number 2. And I'm talking about like 500 songs that I know of in the Disney canon.
This is
Once
number 2.
Upon a December. I mean, and then like closely followed by Journey to the Past and Perry, Hold the Key to Your Heart. And freaking like, sorry, I say freaking a lot when I get really excited.
Good. Keep it up.
But I even like In the Dark of the Night.
that
People
song.
will
Every
find.
song in this, there's not a bad song.
There's
Also-
not, that's the thing that kills me is that there's not a bad one.
There's not a bad one. Also, my little time disease ticked up because these songs come back to back to back.
They do.
They are serving us. We are hungry, and they say, "Here you go, yum 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 yum. Eat it up." Listen. So there's a prologue that lasts.
So I say freaking, and you get like very gay
I really do.
when you get excited.
I really do. Okay, so listen.
I imagined you behind the panel of judges on Drag Race just now when you started talking about that.
Okay, so there's a 7-minute prologue, which doesn't need a song. That's fine. But then from 7 minutes to 18 minutes, there are 3 songs in 11 minutes. It's Rumor in St. Petersburg, Journey to the Past, In the Dark of the Night.
As
11 minutes.
As a good musical should.
Right.
Yes, this is a great musical. Oh, it's so good. Should we go through the songs real quick?
Oh, yes.
Okay. The first we have A Rumor in St. Petersburg.
Have you heard there's a rumor in St. Petersburg? Have you heard what they're saying on the streets? Woo!
Then we have Academy Award and Golden Globe nominated A Journey to the Past.
Heart don't fail me now. Courage, don't desert me.
Don't turn back now that we're here. Then we have Golden Globe nominated Once Upon a December.
Oh.
Dancing bears, painted wings, things
I almost
remember.
Fantastic.
You guys get into it too quick.
Then we have In the Dark of the Night.
In the dark of the night, we will find her, find her. In the dark of the night, we will in the hands of a deep,
Wow. What in the world? How did you guys have the lyrics? That's the one I know the lyrics the best to. And you guys are like,
find her minions.
I love it when it swells and he's just like that. I'm like, oh, it makes me chill every time.
That song really gives me chills.
Oh my god.
And
so
I freaking I eat those stupid bugs up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like when they're like, find her.
It's so good. Then we have Learn to Do It. If I can learn to do it, you can learn to do it. Put yourself together and
There's nothing to it.
That's the My Fair Lady number.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it is so My Fair Lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, fun fact, because I don't know if we'll have another chance to say it, they were deciding this way back when they were deciding what story they were going to go with. They were considering My Fair Lady.
Which is wild to think about.
They ended up deciding to feature more of a Pygmalion part to Anastasia because of that inspiration.
Then we have, okay, this is called Learn to Do It Waltz Reprise, but I always just thought it was called Let Them Dance. She's radiant and confident and born to take this chance. I taught her well, I planned it all, I just forgot romance. The final song, Piece de Resistance.
What does that even mean, Chris?
The piece of resistance.
I don't know what it means.
Perry holds the key to your heart.
Perry holds the key to your heart. There's a bunch of other stuff there.
Do you know that when I was on my iPod, I would always I wouldn't listen to it, but I always saw it, and I would always read it in my mind as Paris holds the key to your heart. And I'm like, that's a terrible name, but I forgot that it's Paris, and so I was always like, what?
My favorite part about that, I love all of it. I can't pick a favorite part, but one part that I do love is when they strip it down, kind of the bridge, and Dimitri's like, Paris holds the key to her past, and it's just so heartbreaking. And it's this is the bop of all bops, but then they're like, oh no, we're also gonna break your heart in this song.
Oh yeah,
it's fantastic. Plus Bernadette Peters.
Oh, the lyrics are just amazing.
And they go to
so
Chanel.
Tight.
Yes, they do go to Chanel.
I always thought oh, Chanel.
It's so good.
It's way easier for me to pick out a song that is less of my favorite than for me to pick my favorite song.
But we do it in every episode.
No.
So, all right, everyone. Favorite song?
I'm going with In the Dark of the Night because that's just the one I go to and put on repeat. And I just the revenge will be sweet.
I think
when
that
the curse is complete.
rivals Be Prepared and Poor Unfortunate Souls as
yes.
ultimate villain songs.
The only problem with it is that it's not long enough. It's just so good that I want more of it. That's my problem is that there's just not enough.
Sure.
Okay, they're all so, it's like thin hairs dividing these. But I would say Once Upon a December.
That's such a good
Yeah,
one.
it's haunting.
That one makes me want to go off into a fairy dream and get lost. It's
too.
just so good.
Also, Thin Hairs, how can you really pick? But I'm going to go with Paris Holds the Key to Your Heart.
Oh, look, we have 3 different songs because they're all
They're all so good.
They're all so good.
Seriously, audience, if you have not listened to this soundtrack recently, do
First of
yourself
all,
a favor.
You can't find it.
I would say you have to. It's not
Find
streaming.
it somewhere.
Just go to YouTube and look up the songs.
Oh, wait, there's one more song we have to mention.
What? Oh,
On this journey,
the beginning.
And it's I find you.
Unexpected, what you did to my heart. Then I lost hope. You were there to remind me this is the start. And life is a road and I wanna keep going. Love is a river I wanna keep flowing. Love is a river I wanna never want to journey.
Okay, so this is...
I'll be there when the world's upturned.
That's one of those songs that's like, if you've never seen this movie and then you watch it and you've never heard this song, it doesn't matter because it sounds so quintessentially 90s that you will feel nostalgic even though you've never seen it or never heard
It's
it.
just so 90s.
It's so 90s.
It's the best. You know what it reminds me of?
What?
This song is like that song they sang at the end of Bridesmaids.
Oh, totally.
Like, it's that type of like...
Hold
Yeah,
on for one
I just
more
want to do
day.
that.
We're doing that bridesmaids dance where they just
Yeah.
look at each other and dance. This song, by the way, for our listeners, is At the Beginning, and it's performed by Richard Marx and Donna Lewis. And it's just, it's everything.
It is.
Let's put a clip. It also kind of reminds me of I love you and forever, near and far, over together.
Yeah.
It's just so good.
When they say, this is the start of
Something new. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Okay, I wish we could talk about music forever. We could literally do a whole podcast on just this soundtrack. Oh, but there's more things to discuss.
Yeah. We got to expand our knowledge.
Do we want to transition into Expanded Universe?
Yes, because we actually have things to talk about.
Yeah.
This movie had a direct-to-video sequel, just like Disney does. I will say that this one is definitely lower grade. It's called Bartok the Magnificent, and as the title entails, it is all about Bartok, and I think it's a prequel. I'm pretty sure
You were going to say, as the title entails, it's magnificent.
it is about Bartok, and it's magnificent. I'm pretty sure it's a prequel. I'm pretty sure it's a prequel because I think it's before the revolution happens, and there's a Romanov involved. I don't remember. I didn't watch this movie for this episode, but it only has Bartok. He's the only character that's involved, but Hank Azaria does return. Don Bluth and Gary Goldman direct this direct-to-video sequel, and it's so interesting. It is interesting because this is the only sequel that Don Bluth directs or is involved with in any way of his works. Like 13 of those Land Before Time movies, he's not a part of that. An American Tail, Five Goes West, which I think is better than American Tail, he's not involved in it.
Wow.
That's
Rockadoodle 2, Rockadoodle Again, isn't a movie. I made it up, so he's not involved in it.
I was like, what the hell is Rockadoodle?
You don't remember Rockadoodle?
Oh, wait. That's
No,
a real one?
Rockadoodle is a movie, and it is a good movie. Rockadoodle 2 was a movie I made up. Don Bluth made a movie called Rockadoodle. Have you guys not really heard of Rockadoodle?
No.
Yeah, no.
Oh my god! I had to take a moment. Okay, if anyone else has not heard of Rockadoodle, we're having a viewing at my house at 3 o'clock. April Fools. But not about Rockadoodle. That is a real movie. That's not a joke. I lost my mind. Okay.
Other expanded universe.
Bartok. Anyway, it's about Bartok. It's a movie. There's a computer game. That's really all I have for Anastasia. What's the sequel?
I have one.
Okay.
Which was, it's a segment I was excited to introduce to this podcast years from now. Little did I know that we'd be doing Anastasia so early. So here's a new segment called 42nd Street. And it's about movies that make their way to Broadway.
Yay!
Anastasia has a Broadway show.
As it should.
As it totally should.
I didn't know it had one until today.
Until this moment.
Until right now.
Yes, it does have a show.
I looked up the soundtrack today for it because I couldn't find the soundtrack, and I was mad.
So the thing is they do keep 6 of the songs from this film, and then there are 16 new songs.
What?
I know, yeah. So it is based on this film loosely, but they change so much of it. Rasputin is not a character. And because of that, In the Dark of the Night is not on the Broadway soundtrack. There is no magic involved in the film at all. There's a new villain who is a Czechist secret police officer. The whole story changes. They also move around the songs, which I don't hate this. Journey to the Past is the Act 1 finale, which I feel like that's a good Act 1 finale.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Totally. It had middling reviews as far as Broadway shows go. The soundtrack is pretty good. I haven't really gotten into those additional songs as much as I ever did the original movie soundtrack, though. So
I looked it up for In the Dark of the Night, and it wasn't there, so I just didn't even listen to it.
Yeah.
That explains it. So, how much of Anastasia is in the Disney parks?
Oh, well, you would be surprised.
Oh, am I?
None of it.
Is Rockadoodle there?
When looking up just general no. When looking up general facts about Anastasia, we found something very interesting. So it's never been in Disney parks in any way. But, something really interesting is that Epcot has drafted plans for a Russia pavilion, which would be, if Anastasia became a Disney princess, they could just rope all that up Yeah, they have space for it. Anyway, not going to harp on
her
that.
in person?
I would cry.
That's so beautiful. I would probably pee my pants.
A prequel.
So we found out that around 1997, SeaWorld,
Of all places.
just pause there. SeaWorld.
Okay. I like where this is going. Makes total
Two
sense.
different SeaWorlds had a 40-foot blow up bounce house-ish thing called Anastasia's Castle that kids could play in.
What? Oh.
Mommy, Daddy, I want to go to the Anastasia theme park.
After we see the manatees.
Weird.
So weird.
What a weird cross-promotional thing.
Yeah, that is strange.
Okay, so guys, I found an advertisement from 1997 advertising the SeaWorld thing. And I just want you to see,
is ready.
I just want you to see it and also hear it. I just
ready.
need you to hear this. Okay, here we go.
Anastasia.
Forget the girl and get a life.
November 21st, only in theaters. And coming this August to SeaWorld, home of Wild Arctic.
It's me, Bartok. You can see me and all my friends and experience the fun of Anastasia.
What?
Anastasia's Kingdom, all August long.
Only at SeaWorld, San Diego and Orlando.
And
They have to pay those poor kids a lot of money to hug on that life-size Bartok.
Also, that was not
No.
Hank Azaria
I'm obsessed
whatsoever.
with that fake Hank Azaria voice. I'm obsessed with it.
Why? That makes me question SeaWorld even more, seeing
was-
it visually.
So upsetting.
What happened?
I don't know.
What
also-
universe did Batman blow something up, and then we got this weird alternate reality where this happened?
And also, I didn't picture it being like a ropes course.
Right?
Like,
What is
I
this?
thought it was going to be like a bounce house.
We have to post that.
We need to post that
We
on
have
our
to
social
post
media.
that.
Yes, we shall.
I'm obsessed with that fake voice. Obsessed.
So, as we've been enjoying and definitely should be featured in this episode, what attraction, meet and greet, or food place would you incorporate into the Disney parks if Anastasia was Disney?
Just meeting Anastasia, first of all, should be.
Right.
But I don't know how they would do it. I'm not a Disney Imagineer. But if they had some sort of boat ride that was the nightmare and the dream of being on that boat, and somehow it would be something with cool lighting where like the boat rocks and the light it shines on your left hand side and it's like horrifying stuff, and then as soon as it rocks the other side the light shows on your right and it's all like the daydream stuff, and you like go through that. I don't know, something like that.
Obviously a meet and greet. I'm going to take it one step further, though, and a meet and greet inside of a ball, and I think Disney should go all out. Make a Russia pavilion, and then have a ballroom. Maybe let's make it a restaurant so there's like a dinner and a show, but like people specifically go there to like dress up, and there's like a dance during it, and you can like, it's going to be like the ballroom at Be Our Guest, but you can actually dance. And it will be like those ghostly things when she dances. Because that party is just so beautiful that they have.
They already have all the Imagineering taken care of for that ball scene because they just need to yank it from Haunted Mansion and put it in the Russia Pavilion. That's what I'll go with too. It's just the best idea to have a Russian pavilion and then have all Anastasia stuff all up in there. A meet and greet, a dining place that's like Be Our Guest, a ride, just like you said, all of it Russia Pavilion. Do it. Yeah. Book it.
And it's not crazy to put Anastasia in Disney World. Like, I mean, there's a whole Pandora with like
You're
Avatar.
so right.
There's no. I feel like some people will be like, she's not Disney, but I'm like,
Neither
it's
is
not
Marvel.
any
Neither
different
is
than
Star Wars.
Right, and technically, I mean, Pixar is its own thing. So, like,
Right.
because Merida is a Disney princess, and she's Pixar. So, there's totally
Whoa.
room for Anastasia.
You're so right.
Do it.
I've never, I knew that, but
Yeah.
I've never connected those two things together.
Where's the petition?
Right.
We're going to
I'm
sign
signing
one.
it.
Please join our change.org petition.
So that's all I got for parks.
Since we're just real quick, since we're talking about making her a Disney princess, another way that I think that they could make her into a Disney princess without just adopting her, I think they could do a live action Anastasia and make it a live action version of this film with these songs, but it would have the Disney brand, and then it really is a Disney film.
Heck yeah.
Which I would be totally on board for.
Yeah, and I think that they should learn from the lukewarm success of the stage version and not mess with it too much.
Totally.
Just put it right straight from animation to live action. Yeah.
So now we're going to move on to the bulk. Well, the music might be the bulk of this one.
This one was definitely...
Does this film hold up? So quickly, we'll start with the Bechdel test. Yes, this movie passes
absolutely
the
passes
Bechdel
the
test. There are 3 fully formed female characters that all interact with one another. So
and hardly ever talk about a man.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that this movie holds up as much as it does, because with this April Fool's Fun episode, guys, I don't really want a hardcore discussion about, serious stuff, even though the history of this movie is very dark. But I was very surprised at how much it held up. There's not... Besides the fact that the reality of the history is so dark, and then this movie just kind of make it fun, that could be problematic for some people, and it throws me off a little bit. Other than Dimitri making an offhand comment about women, other than that,
Abigail and I both just gasped
you
and put
really
our fingers
did. What
up
was
in
that
unison.
about? What was that?
Well, the reason why I think that actually his very misogynistic comments about women are still appropriate today is because Anastasia is very clearly this feminist character who's really changing his mind about. He said he doesn't like women that think or speak their mind or something.
Yeah, that's what she says. Something,
and then in response, she says,
I was just saying
Please,
that
don't talk anymore, okay? It's only gonna upset me.
I think that because she matches him tit for tat every time he says something inappropriate, and he has a change of heart, that it actually really makes him a rounded character.
He has the character arc of this movie.
Right.
Not
yeah.
What I love is that Anastasia never changes. She is a princess.
Her situation changes,
but she stays true to who she is. Once she is in the palace with that crown on, there's nothing different about her. It's Dimitri is the character that gets the arc in this film.
I honestly take his comments too as his sense of humor, which might not be appropriate for especially some women, but Anastasia just doesn't take it, and she's kind of playing off of it. But yeah, he definitely grows. He's one of the most interesting characters in the movie to me, especially because I do have a weird thing, because I feel like when he's a boy and he saves them, and I'm very interested in what happens in between the time to make him become a con man. And
well, he was captured by those guards. He probably was not treated very well.
I know, that's what I mean. I'd be very interested to see the Dimitri years.
The Dimitri prequel,
right? Because Anastasia, she's sat in an orphanage her whole life. Okay, cool. But Dimitri, he obviously went through some stuff. I just want to... It'd be interesting to see. Yeah.
I think as far as something that doesn't hold up is any point in time where I just have a really big problem with any person, man or woman or non-binary, handling me in any way. In no circumstance should you prevent somebody from moving in a direction that they're moving by grabbing them. Mm-hmm. And he does do that. And she does smack him, and he does deserve it.
She does straight up slap him.
Oh, I love it. I love when she slaps him.
I feel like there should be this conversation off screen, listen, that was not okay.
We're going to be together, but you can never grab me like that.
If you ever do that to me again,
I'm out.
And Anastasia would say that.
Yeah.
Oh, she
And
totally
so
would.
that's the part that like saves it, is that Anastasia doesn't just take this crap. It's not.
That type of grab happens in a lot of movies.
Oh, yeah,
like,
for sure.
please don't leave. We all know that Dimitri was trying to tell her something
It's
important.
showing desperation.
Yeah, it is showing desperation, but still, like, it's a bad habit to showcase men men, but anybody ever grabbing
and-
somebody to keep them there. Just let them go.
Yeah.
That's the lesson we're all going to talk about, right?
Completely.
We all are under this impression. Let somebody go. Never grab them.
Yeah.
So.
Now, you used the word feminist earlier, Abigail, and I think the character of Anastasia is the most, when defining feminism as equal and equality and men and women on the same page, because that is what that means, not that women are better, just everyone's equal. I think this movie does that in spades.
It does really
Dimitri saves Anastasia. Anastasia saves Dimitri multiple times throughout the film. I mean, he helps her learn all of this information and helps her grow and kind of come into her own. And she puts him in his place, and she saves him on the train by handing him the dynamite and being like, "We gotta go. Let's jump off." And like they're partners. And like,
Oh, it's the most feminist moment was when Vlad was like not able to help Dimitri, and like she goes and helps Dimitri, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And she was like, "Well, he's occupied, so this is what you get."
exactly. It's
Like-
so great. And I think if we're comparing this to all of the Disney films at this time to 1997, I think Anastasia is the most active female protagonist so far. More than Belle, more than Jasmine, more than anybody else that we've seen. 20th Century Fox, I gotta give him credit where credit is due. She's so well-rounded. She is sarcastic and funny, but also sweet. She is feminine and beautiful, but also super active and does not take bull from anybody. And she's the one who defeats Rasputin in a heel, using a heel, by the way. That's what I love about it. I feel like there are so many, especially in the 90s and the 2000s, I feel like there was this compromise of, yeah, we're going to have active, tough female characters, but they also sacrifice, it's like, well, if you're active and tough, you can't be beautiful.
Feminine.
Or feminine. Like, it was kind of, and Anastasia is everything. Sorry, I'm like,
You are everything, girl.
She
Playful.
is, though.
Do you know what the scene that grabbed me the most is? When they are on the boat and she has the bottom bunk and Vlad has the top bunk, and whenever he sinks in on her, and just playfully, they're just like laughing with each other, and she like kicks him,
Yes.
like a little sister would, like to someone. Because me and my brother shared a bunk bed when we were little, and I remember kicking the top just to be And it's just, I'm just like, that's such a small nuanced thing that they did. Oh my gosh, I think that alone just bumped this up a half a star. I'm gonna put it back up to this movie's good. You're right. You're so right. Anastasia's like, she's such a good character.
She's amazing. I'm so, like, I love this film.
Oh, so the only thing I could say that would be like, does it hold up? And I understand people have different opinions on this, but I do think that I speak for a large group of people in saying that Rasputin was extremely scary. And I think Rasputin's character toes the line of maybe even too scary for kids. And I understand that some people, watching it as a 30-year-old, I'm like, totally down with how like crazy demonic he is and evil, and it's very like satanic or whatever. But I was disturbed by a lot of things that happened in this movie as a child, not irrevocably, like not like in a way that like damaged me.
Yeah.
But I do think that it was pretty intense.
Because it's a Disney podcast, I'm going to lump this in, comparing it to all the Disney movies. If this was a Disney film, this would be one of the scariest. For some reason, Rasputin himself did not frighten me as a kid. I think his like body parts falling
visual.
off and stuff, the visual seemed goofier, and I was like, that's not real. In my 8-year-old brain, I said, that's not real. But the green ghosts,
Yeah.
those
they are
terrified me. And I do think that boat scene is kind of horrifying. The images of the dream are horrifying when you see the second, they're not horrifying, but the second you come out of them and you're like, oh crap, that's horrifying. So I think that is going to be where I'm like, would I show this to a child? I would have to be like, how old are they? I think as far as the cultural stuff, it holds up, but like there's some pretty horrific stuff in it.
I like that you're using the word horrifying, because that's where I would say is like there's horrific stuff, as in like it's bringing horror elements into this kid's movie. I don't remember being terrified of him as a kid, but I could definitely see why. Like everything about, he's a zombie. I mean, he's just
he is.
I always bring it to Stella, my niece, because I've watched a movie with her, and she's really good about saying, "I'm scared, turn it off," like, or "That scares me. I don't like this," but a lot of kids don't. So when it comes to being scared, because I am a person who would want to encourage kids if they are going to become horror fans, because I am, that if they're not scared and it's okay and it's meant for kids, unless I'm like, that's obviously way too, like, it's, but with Rasputin, he's like, I would be like, Stella, does he scare you? And if she said no, then I'd be like, go ahead. Like, I don't find him to be scary enough that I would not want a kid to see it.
Well, does it hold up? And we have to talk about this because we've been kind of like coasting over this. Is this historical inaccuracy that was a serious problem for a lot of people?
It does bother me.
And it's like that is just probably the biggest conversation as far as does it hold up. I really think we need to break down in comparison to Pocahontas. Is it the same? Is one worse than the other? What is the implication of historical inaccuracy and its respect towards a culture?
I don't think we should super dive into Pocahontas, but I think Pocahontas is more offensive because it washes over this really horrible thing that white people did, like Europeaners. Is that a word?
Europeans.
No, Europeans. Keep it in.
No,
Keep it in.
Okay. This horrible thing that Europeans did, it like washes over that.
So can I bring another movie into this just to complicate matters?
You can.
Okay, I'm going to. For me, Anastasia is more like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yes, I completely agree.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Sorry. Spoilers for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood if you haven't seen it. So I immensely enjoyed Once Upon a Time in Hollywood until the last second of that movie, because it romanticizes and rewrites history of something absolutely tragic and horrible in Hollywood history, and puts a lighter side on it and gives us like an alternate universe of like, what if this happened instead and then everything was hunky-dory. And that just rubs me the wrong way. Like, it brought Once Upon a Time in Hollywood down for me so hard.
Well, Glorious Bastards is the same thing. Same director,
right,
earlier.
Because I haven't seen that one, though. That's the only reason that... But recent memory, and we watched it together.
And I remember you being very upset.
I was just like, it just like made me feel wrong. And this sort of feels the same. And I don't know if it's like because it's so like the fact that it happened in the 1900s. It's just so weird to me. Now I do forgive this one a little bit more because in Russia she became like a myth, like a legend. I was about to bring
that up. Does that add to it? Like,
yeah, and like this sort of like is romanticizing that legend and that mystery, because
doesn't the legend itself romanticize the issue at hand?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's like it became a legend overnight, and then all of a sudden everyone was like, "Oh, the missing Grand Duchess Anastasia, she's out there," and it's such an interesting story.
And even at the time of this film being made, there was no DNA forensic proof of her body being found.
It was still like an out there thing. And with Pocahontas, sorry to go all the way back, that's just straight out like we're rewriting history, and
it's the people that did I know that Disney
not the
animators,
people, yeah,
but like as non-Native Americans in the U.S., it's our story, like that we're changing. Does that make like?
So does that make I'm curious about this. Is it better if we are messing with a story that's not ours?
That's the problem too, because Russia, like no one from Russia ever made this movie. It's not like a.
But did it make anybody that was evil look good? Like it didn't take, like, her entire family died. There were only 2 survivors. Everybody still died. I think if this film was like, none of that happened and everyone survived and everybody's happy, I think that would be a bigger problem. The fact that the only one they didn't know could have maybe been alive was Anastasia, and that it was a real myth, and that this is just the version of, well, what if she was alive? This is what could have happened. And it was a real myth. And there was no proof that she actually died at that time. To me, it doesn't bother me.
Whereas Pocahontas, it's like, what if we didn't kill these people and take their land? And
like, that was in the history books. Like, That's just me.
You're saying it's different because Anastasia is not wiping away something horrible, but it's taking something after the horrible fact and making it lighter. Whereas Pocahontas is pretending the horrible thing didn't happen.
Exactly. 1000%. I think that's the difference.
Okay. That is where I wanted you to get. I feel like that teacher where I was like, and blah!
You're almost there.
And that is how you defend your writing.
I love
We're
it.
writing that.
Yes, as an English teacher.
Thanks, Mrs. Hart.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I think as far as anything else that would seem problematic, that's really the only thing that seemed problematic to me,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And that's my thing. It's not even, I don't even know if I can call it problematic. It just rubs me a weird way, the same way that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood did.
So, good talk. All right. So, does this movie hold up? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being it's perfect, don't change a thing about it, and 1 being cut it from the Disney catalog. Where does this hold up? I will say a 9 out of 10.
I'm going to go with a solid 8 for historical stuff, personally, and just being a little dated with certain animation.
8.5.
Okay.
Nice.
Solid. I'll take it. All right. Let's wrap this up.
Who's your favorite character in the movie?
For me, it was Puka.
We haven't even talked about Puka.
I know.
Do you know what Puka reminds me of? Of the baby elephant in Jungle Book. His little hair.
Oh.
I didn't explain why he reminded me.
And I'm
of it.
pretty
Sorry.
sure he was my favorite character,
Yeah,
too.
he
There you go. Just
Junior?
like human hair on animals.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that is the cutest dog ever.
very
And
cute.
I literally laughed out loud and in that bunk bed scene when
Yeah.
he gets crushed, he's like,
My favorite character, it's a tie. Can I pick 2?
sure.
I'm sorry. It's Anastasia because I love a powerful, sarcastic female. So I'm always going to be drawn to them. Sorry. But then I love Vlad. I love him. I think he is so lovable. His relationship with Dimitri and his relationship with Anastasia is just so beautiful. And he cares so much about them. And I just love Vlad. So I'm going to go with Vlad and Anastasia.
I'm Bartok all the way. I love that little albino bat. I love him.
I am gonna say something
Say
about
it.
Bartok.
Bring it.
One of the only parts of this movie that I don't like is how it ends. I don't think it deserved for Bartok to finish
Makes
it.
no sense.
Agreed.
I
Or
would
that like
totally agree with
little
you.
girl
Random
bat.
kiss.
I don't
Yeah.
understand that pink bat flies in. He's like, okay, that's all, folks. And I'm like, you are not Iago. You did not become good in this movie. I don't know what you're
Yeah.
doing. I don't know why he ends this movie. I
just wish
totally
they-
agree with you.
They panned up, done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got enough funny Bartok from everything
Yes.
else.
No, I agree with you. That's, yeah.
So
he
anyway,
doesn't need to do
that's
that.
what I'll say about him.
Who is the poor unfortunate soul of this movie?
We all know it's the Romanov family.
I was going to say, the
I
whole
know,
family that got murdered.
Sheesh. Has to be. Yeah,
I know who. When Dimitri is running after Anastasia, and there's this guy who's like in Dimitri's way, and then his glass breaks on the ground. Poor guy.
or whoever did not get off that train.
Yes. Oh, my God.
Because I mean,
Oh my gosh!
yeah, you didn't think about that.
No.
It was a...
It
was not...
It uncoupled.
Okay.
One was like racing forward with a lot of momentum. I think what Dimitri thought was going to happen was like, we'll slow down eventually. Also, oh crap, they ruined they're not going to have enough track.
No.
These poor people.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that's the poor unfortunate souls.
no.
Also, the captain of this boat in this storm,
True.
he was freaking out. Poor man.
Also, the conductor of the train.
Oh,
There
yeah.
was one at one point.
Right. So basically, everyone who's not a main character in this movie is
Yeah.
the poor unfortunate soul.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in every movie, we pick a thing of things. The thing of things, it was Chris's suggestion, and I think it's a great one. Is what was your favorite outfit that Anastasia wore?
And there are a lot of them, people.
So many. When you mentioned that earlier, that like they give her different outfits, and I thought about it. I'm like, even today, like in Frozen, they don't change outfits.
No, not as much as...
Yeah.
It took 2 movies to get like
Right.
4 outfits from them. Anastasia has like 10 outfits in this movie.
And I guess-
she changes outfits in the middle of a song.
Outfits, hairstyles, jewelry,
Yes.
shoes.
Everything.
Well, and speaking of changing outfits in the middle of she changes outfits in the middle of 2 songs, actually.
Yeah. We should do a Instagram slidey
For sure,
where we
to show
do
everything.
all of her outfits.
Yeah.
I like how we're probably gonna post more about this movie on Instagram than we have like the last 4. My absolute favorite is the ghost dress.
If for those of you listening, if you're wondering what dress that is, that's kind of, which I think is funny. I think that is like the poster dress.
Right.
That's like...
It's what I would want to meet her in. It's what I imagine her being in if you met her at a theme park. Because it's sort of like a proto version of her big dress at the end, like her princess dress, because it has the same colors but it's just like toned down a little bit. Like it's not as formal, but it's like what I imagine.
You're right. Yeah, when you Google Anastasia, she comes up in the ghost dress like first, and she's on the cover of that film in that dress.
Yeah, the final one's too like
regal,
too princessy for me. I don't know. I love the fact that the ghost dress looks comfortable and fun, but also royal.
Sure. The opera dress with the shimmering cape and those gloves. I honestly
No, she just wears her necklace all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I honestly get chills from it. It's beautiful. But then the purple dress at the start of Paris Holds the Key to My Heart. She looks so chic, so fashionable.
So Chanel.
She looks amazing. I was like, that's a dress? I was going to say, that's a dress that I would wear, but I wouldn't.
That's a dress that Kelsey Glamor would wear.
Kelsey Glamor, my drag persona, would wear that purple dress. Abigail?
I'm very sincere about this answer. I love her orphanage outfit.
Like what we would call like her peasant clothes.
Because I think it brings so much character. I love when she stuffs the scarf in her pocket and it kind of trails behind her. I love when she takes off. It's obviously this oversized coat that gives her this like, oh, it has so much character. She takes off the coat and then she has this cinched like baggy thing going on. I really love that outfit.
I agree.
And that's like the VHS cover has her in that too. So that's like the visual of that, Anastasia. Like honestly, she has so many in between, but to me, I don't know why, but I do it like with Belle, and like that's her peasant dress that Belle has, and then the final dress is like the Belle's princess dress to me.
I really do love that outfit. But my second, like if I was doing a peasant and a glamour, I would say the ballet dress.
Did I say the opera?
You did say opera. You really want
I did it all the time. I do it all the
also,
time.
just so we all know, that was very clearly, they never said it, but it was very clearly a Cinderella ballet.
Yes.
Which I thought was cool.
I love that. Also, she has some awesome pink pajamas, which I also love. That's all I'll say on that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and it was
They're so cute.
It was like see-through around the waist. And I was like, girl.
With your grandma?
Chic.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. The time has come. What is our overall rating of this film out of 5 stars? And then we know this isn't a Disney movie. We also know that this is coming 30 years later after where we are in the podcast. But what's your hypothetical ranking? Where would this rank among the movies that we've talked about, and maybe some of the Disney movies that we love that are coming up?
I've switched back and forth, I guess, between 4 and 4.5, but I'm going to go with 4.5. No pressure, right? Hypothetical ranking, it would probably go up to like, it is hard because it's not a Disney movie and it's so much, it's like in the area where my favorite Disney movies are, but I don't think I would put it above Cinderella or Snow White, so I'm gonna put it like, I'll put it like my top 5 of what we've gone through so far.
I gave Anastasia 4.5 stars. And I would rank it number 1 out of all of the movies that we have so far. And I think it would break my top 10 of the 59 movies.
Wow.
I gave Anastasia 5 stars.
Woo! Ding, ding, ding.
I know it's the first time I've given a movie 5 stars. I don't have a lot of them in the Disney universe, so not that this is in the Disney universe. It's number 1 of the ones we've talked about, and if this were a Disney movie, I think it would be in the top 5 of all Disney movies that we're going to talk about. So I don't know exactly where, but top 5 for sure. Love this movie. Well, that's about it. Thank you so much for celebrating your April Fools with us and for joining us on this 2-hour joke.
Yeah. Oh Oh, man. Yeah, hopefully none of you are too upset that we reviewed this movie. But if you are, hashtag sorry, not sorry. Because this is a fantastic movie.
If anything gets you interested in watching it, then we did our job.
Totally.
We're back to normal, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we promise. This is not a joke.
As I said last week, our next Disney movie that we
You
will
did.
be watching.
You were very specific with that wording.
I specifically said our next Disney movie. I did not lie to you last week. We just April Fooled you this week. Next week, we will be doing Robin Hood, I promise. And we will also have a guest.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
We have a special guest coming up.
My dear, dear friend, Janie Ledford.
Yes. So get excited for her. She's going to be a real treat, I promise. She is... It's gonna be a good one, I promise, guys. So join us next week for Robin Hood.
Feel free to follow along with us on Instagram, Facebook. You can email us at idleprattlepodcast@gmail.com. And go to Apple Podcasts and leave us some reviews, you guys. Unless they're being upset about Anastasia. In that case, keep those to yourself. Just kidding. We love to hear all reviews for real. So.
And as always, don't underestimate the importance of giving her a ha, and a hi-ya, and a hoo-ah, a kickerser, and
Body language. Das vidanya.